So Amelia, this is something that I've been sort of advertising now for a number of weeks to let my followers on here know what the campaign is all about, what we're about to do. So before we kind of start, would you just like to talk a little bit about your role and Touchstone, what you do?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Um, yeah, so my name's Amelia Axis and I'm the recruitment and inclusion coordinator at Touchstone, which is a mental health charity in Yorkshire. My role started in September alongside this project, and this new project all about inclusive recruitment in the NHS Mental Health and Learning Disabilities Trusts, and it's essentially hosted by Touchstone, commissioned by the West Yorkshire Health and Care Partnership, and funded by Health Education England. So we started in September with the aim to work with these 3 specific NHS mental health trusts in West Yorkshire. So that's Leeds and York Partnership Foundation Trust. They all have very long names, of course. Bradford District Care Trust and South West Yorkshire Partnership Foundation Trust. And just looking at their kind of recruitment and retention practices and seeing how it can make them more inclusive and accessible to more people.
Thank you so much for that overview. So if I can start to begin by asking a couple of questions, and if there's anything that anyone wants to ask, please type your comments below and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. We are also going to save this live, and I'm going to give you all a wave because there's lots of waves happening. So if I ask, what kind of jobs are being advertised? That's the first thing, and then we'll follow that up with a few other things.
Yeah. So the trusts are all very varied in the types of roles that exist. So when we attend job fairs and stuff, we always get a lot of questions about, oh, if it's an NHS trust, then surely there must just be kind of roles for doctors and nurses. But that's very much not the case, and especially in a mental health and learning disabilities trust like these 3, where the roles are very diverse. So you have things like kind of facilities, you have IT, you have finance, you have admins, you have support workers, peer support workers, nurses, both learning disability nurses and mental health nurses, and then kind of things within the psychological professions. It's a very wide field, essentially. So you can see kind of the wide range if you go on any of their vacancy sites and click through to different categories, and you'll see lots and lots of different types of roles.
Okay, so just answering the question or comment, from my experience, sometimes I have found you don't have the right people in these roles. That's a good comment, and I think one of the things that I highlighted in all the kind of videos that I've made is you've got to be compassionate, you've got to be kind, you have to have a caring attitude. These are the people, first and foremost, in terms of recruitment. If you're working within a hospital, this is the baseline of anything, and as humans we should be like that regardless of whether we're working within a hospital or not. So thank you for your and I'm sure that Amelia, you agree with that. Those are some of the attributes that we look at in terms of people's personalities, that, you know, if you don't have a caring attitude, then, you know, hospital jobs, working with patients, with people, is perhaps not the right thing.
Yeah, and that's part of what this project is about, because a lot of those people who have the right values, who have the compassion, are often kind of kept out by these very rigid recruitment processes. So long application forms, long periods of time that you have to wait to do pre-employment checks and all of that. A lot of barriers are put up. So now we're trying to move more towards a values-based recruitment strategy, where we want to make sure it's the right people with those values, rather than just those who interview well, or those who are good at filling in application forms, which is what this modern recruitment method very much tends to lead to. So that is very much part of what we're doing now. We want to make sure we get those people who care about their work. And this is where the kind of the importance of a diverse workforce comes in as well, because there's a lot of that those same issues come when people don't have maybe the cultural knowledge or any kind of knowledge that will add to someone's feeling of security, of just well-being in that kind of often very could be scary, confusing situation if you're there as a patient or as a service user. All of these things are integral parts to our project that we really want to focus more on.
Right, thank you. So before I come and answer your questions, there's a number of questions in the chat. So apart from sort of the basic attributes that we talked about, the compassion, the empathy, the kindness, do people have to have a background knowledge, like a working history or qualifications to do the jobs that are being advertised?
That depends entirely on the role, and it can depend on the trust as well. So we, with this project, with some of the events that we'll talk about in a little bit that we're doing now, we have a special focus on, for example, support workers. And with a lot of support work, you don't always need very specific experience. Lived experience is an important enough component in itself. Lived experience gives you a completely different perspective on that type of work.
If somebody who hasn't worked, so one of the things that you mentioned was lived experience. Now that lots of people are not familiar with, and I know that within the NHS quite regularly, and you've just explained that really nicely. For instance, if you've cared for a loved one, that counts as lived experience. The fact that you've been able to care for somebody, you might have been given them medication, round the clock care. You've not had the opportunity to work because you might have been a carer for a long time, or you've raised your children and you've not had the opportunity to work. You know, there's probably many factors for why people have not had the opportunity to work. So all those things that you've encountered in doing whatever it is that that person's been doing, that counts for something as if you're applying for a job. Now, getting to the stage of there's a level of confidence people need in order of having an application, and that can be quite daunting, looking at application, going through the job specification. That's something very new, I would imagine, for people who've just been caring or having other responsibilities. What kind of help and support is there, if any, for people in those situations?
Yeah. So part of the project that we're doing now, we have quite a few different avenues that we're working in terms of the whole project, which tends to get a lot for different people. But we do offer practical employment support for any applications, interviews, or just finding the right roles for these three trusts. So you can get in touch with us, and we can, a lot of what we do is people email us and then they'll say, I'm looking for this type of role in this area. We can then navigate the websites for you, say if we have some knowledge of upcoming roles, see what's there, let you know how to apply. But then we can also help you with the actual application. So if you find a role that you would like to apply to, but you're unsure of how to kind of progress with it, how do you approach filling out an online application form? And they tend to be on specific systems, one of two systems in these trusts, and that can be a completely new experience for a lot of people. So we can set up called an employment support session with people one-to-one and go through that step by step.
Yeah. And that was one of the questions from somebody, is that how do we apply? Yeah.
Yeah, so you can contact us and ask about that, but also just as a general, for myself, I prefer going directly to the trust website. So it depends a little bit about which area you're in, which trust you're looking at.
And if that is quite a struggle for people with the information that you've given, this live will be saved and it will remain on my page. If I could perhaps put your link in for your organisation, is that a good way? Then would you be able to support them and signpost them?
Yeah. Yeah, if we put just the contact information, we should be able to just let you know how to proceed. And we can send a guide. We can just have a chat. You can give us a call, although up until, well, after next week it'll be easier to call us. Or send an email, just ask a question. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read out a comment. Also, some of these departments should have internal therapy departments because dealing with other people's trauma can cause them harm and burnout, lash out on patients. That's a really good comment. And I think you've sort of touched upon that a little bit earlier in terms of internal support and how you and staff retention to keep staff involved. It's not about supporting people to get into a role, but once they get in there, you know, they might find it difficult, or, you know, working with patients can be quite challenging, because it can be mentally challenging. It could be you've got your own trauma and you could be triggered by that trauma. So what comment would you perhaps say to this person who's made that comment? Because I think it is a very valid comment.
Yeah, completely agree. I know that there's some work being done on this, because there is a lot, and you see it in specific roles as well. So we talked about lived experience, and so a role to highlight there. There is quite a few peer support worker roles where the prerequisite is lived experience, and that's a role where the risk of re-traumatization or being triggered in anything is quite high. It is a demanding job no matter what, and you see a lot, and you're put in a lot of situations, you hear a lot of stories, you support people who really need support, but then you don't always know how to best support, and it's really important that those staff have their well-being kind of prioritized in the way that they need in order to actually have to sustain work there and to continue giving the support that is very completely invaluable to the service users.
Some things just popped in my mind whilst you was chatting, and I was perhaps thinking about myself many years ago. It's quite normal in certain cultures for when a woman is married and she takes on the duty of parenting, the female parenting role, bringing and raising the children. So what about people who want to have a job around once the children are in full-time school? Is there any availability for people to do a job like, for instance, 9 till 3 and then be available for the children at the end of the day? Because I'm sure that would be the case for probably perhaps, you know, a large number of people.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who come to us wanting some sort of part-time or flexible working, and the availability of flexible working has increased since essentially since the pandemic, which is a great thing.
And do people need to have an NHS, any sort of experience working within the NHS?
No, we do see that people tend to get in easier if they have NHS experience, but you do not need NHS experience. Most roles you can just go in, like you can apply anyway. You don't need to have specifically NHS experience. It just means that sometimes they'll perhaps, because they might favor someone who has more NHS experience, but it's a classic one with a lot of public and third sector organizations, where once you have your foot in the door, you have your foot in like you're on your way in. So we kind of advise people, depending on the types of roles that they're going for, to apply for one and then look at the progression. Always ask an interview about progression as well. So it's, yeah, it can be difficult, but you absolutely do not need NHS experience. Apply anyway, and especially at lower bands. Again, we encourage lived experience over this very specific professional experience.
Yeah. So there's been a number of comments asking the same kind of questions. How do we get in touch? So what I will do is this live will be saved. I will put the links in so you'll be able to get in touch with either Touchstone or directly to the links. So what about something that which I'm quite interested in is the recruitment fairs, and what are those all about, and how can people join these recruitment fairs?
We will continue to do more in-person fairs around West Yorkshire. We're currently trying to confirm venues, but our next two fairs will be in Leeds and in Huddersfield. So look out for information about that. In the links that Shaheen will share, we always share those things on social media, and you'll be able to see flyers up and around as well. So just keep an eye out for when the next in-person one is, and you can come and chat directly to the trust and ask any questions that you have. The big thing right now is the first virtual fair that we're doing, a virtual job fair, which is on the 31st of May. It opens at 10:15, kind of officially from 10. You can register online if you go to NHS Job Fairs West Yorks.vfairs.com. Again, this will be shared later on. You can register to attend on the day. You put your email in, and that's all you need to log in. And then on the 31st, it'll open, be an online platform. So it'll be essentially like a traditional job fair, but just static 2D. Where you can click through to live webinars and on-demand videos. We'll have 3 live webinars at this first one, and then we'll have different ones at the next one. The first 3 there'll be 2 on learning and development in support work, and then there'll be 1 on what do support workers really do. And then we'll have some on-demand videos from the different trusts about different roles. So there's a video about learning disability nursing, and there's a video about perinatal mental health. So I recommend looking at those, finding out more about what these trusts actually do, because they are big and they have a lot of different services and lots of different roles. So we encourage finding out as much as you can about that. And then on the other kind of bit of the platform, you can click through to the exhibition hall. Essentially, that's where all the booths are. So there's a booth for each trust, as well as Touchstone. And you just choose whichever one. We recommend clicking on all of them and finding out about all of them. You click through, and there's a virtual booth. So you have like a bar, you can see text, and you can read about each trust or each organisation, find out about what it's like to work there, benefits of working there, and some of them you can read a little bit about the local area. There will also be links to the live vacancies. You can click through directly to see what are they currently hiring for. There'll be some more videos from each trust and each organisation that you can look into. There will also be links to the websites and social media links as well, so that you can keep up to date with what they're happening. So if they're participating in different job fairs, you can find out that way. There will also be a chat function. So at the top of the booth, you can click into chat, and you'll be taken to a chat room with representatives from that trust or that organisation. You can ask any questions that you want. You can also, so there's a public chat room, but you can also request a private chat with any other representatives. Maybe if you want to specifically share about your experience, you want to ask let's say I have this experience, what kind of roles will be available to me, what kind of roles would suit me, and they'll be there to answer any questions. So highly recommend having a chat with the trusts that you're interested in, or the organisation that you're interested in. We will also have a booth for employment support. So me and my colleague will be in that booth in the little chat room, and you can ask us any questions about application processes, how to get in touch with us, and all our information will be on there as well. So you can click through to the website, you can click through to our social media sites, you can click through to just the contact and what the project is about. So highly recommend all of that. So yeah, if you register online, you can attend on the day. We then have, so alongside this job fair, we're doing on the day recruitment as well. So we've screened up until last week, people could opt in for screening for a potential support worker interview. So we had nearly 200 people opt in for this screening, which was a lot more than we thought it was going to be, but that's a very pleasant surprise. And essentially what we then did was contact each person who had opted in for screening, ask them some questions, all agreed by the trusts, and then put them through to interview if they kind of pass the screening. The screening is not an interview in itself, it's more like tell us about why you want to work in healthcare, what kind of experience you have, lived or professional, and what kind of location you're in and what you'd like to do essentially. And if we have the capacity, we can offer an interview. So we've now done that for the first event, but we will be doing it again for the second event, which is on the 28th of June. So we will be accepting opt-ins for screening again, and that will be reopened on the 7th of June. So if you would like to opt in for a screening for the next kind of batch of support worker interviews, you can just register and you click the little box that says I would like to be considered for an interview, and then we get in touch with you. And we will be doing that 4 times now throughout this year. So we have this one in May, we have the 28th of June, and then we have the 28th of September and the 26th of October as well. So there'll be many chances, and we recommend coming to the ones that suit you, but all of them, because there'll be different webinars and there might be slightly different booths each time as well. So we'll always have Touchstone and the 3 trusts, but we might invite some other organisations as well along to talk about the work that they're doing, and maybe talk about some different roles that exist as well. So yes, highly recommend. And the first one is on the 31st of May. Please come along.
So it sounds really exciting, the virtual event, which is on the 31st, and I will definitely put the link in when I save this video, because I think it would be really good to get as many people there as possible so that they get a feel of what it is that they're looking at and all the booths that you mentioned. I think that's really exciting. So some of the questions that you've asked in the chat, I think, you know, well, I'm actually quite sure that they will get answered on the day if you join that virtual event. So lots of people have asked about different type of job roles, and I think it's once you attend that event, you'll get the answers that you're looking for, hopefully. And one of the questions, probably a couple of times, is about hybrid working opportunities. We are living in a new world, and that, which I'm part of, and I never knew what hybrid working was until we've been hit by this pandemic. So working for some people and it's not for some, but I suppose is there the opportunity for people to have that. And hybrid working, for the people who haven't heard that term, is working from home as well as on site, being with it, being present as yourself. So would there be any opportunities for that kind of work?
Yeah, I am a huge fan of hybrid working. It has helped me massively with my chronic illnesses and stuff. So it is a kind of a game changer for a lot of people. A lot of roles now, well, certain roles now in the trusts as well will offer hybrid working, but it tends to be the more office-based roles. So some admin roles, some kind of comms, communication roles will be hybrid working. Some will be fully remote. The fully remote ones are slightly rarer, but they prop up as well.
And we're really really pushing on diversity. We really want to look at people who have got lived experience, like you mentioned, people from a variety of backgrounds. You know, there's no age factors within these roles, you know, young or older, people who haven't worked or had the opportunity, people who have perhaps, you know, experienced domestic violence and things have just not worked out. You know, that's lived experience, people who've been caring. I suppose there's lots of things that we can mention, but, you know, being of different heritage, you know, all these things are richness that you bring to work. And when we talk about bringing your whole self to work, you know, we're really trying to attract people from, you know, and talent, you know, and hopefully to build on that talent. And I know that there's another sort of question stroke comment from somebody: I've applied for a number of jobs and never heard back. Why does the NHS not get back to applicants if not successful? So from my understanding is that they do always get back in touch, but if they're overwhelmed with applications, I think they usually say, if we've had so many applications, we might not get back. There's usually a clause written down. So something that you might not know the answer to, or you do, or we can perhaps find out if that is something that is.
It's something, it does happen. Every trust tries to get back to applicants and candidates. They don't always give feedback after an application, but they should be given feedback after an interview at the very least.
Thank you so much. Amelia, we've come to the end of our session, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
It's not everyone's cup of tea to sit and look at yourself whilst you're talking. It's quite difficult. So thank you so much. And thank you for all who joined. And I will save this live and I will put the links in the live at the bottom so that you'll be able to. And if anyone struggles, please just send me a DM and I will signpost you and get you to the right places. And get to the virtual job fair on the 31st, because that's where you'll really get the best out of all the information that you need, and some of the questions that perhaps you were asking around the type of roles, you know, the support that somebody might need. That's the place to be, if I'm right.
Very much so. You can also just get in touch with us and we'll try to give you all the information that we can. Bearing in mind that we don't actually work for the NHS, so we don't have that much insider knowledge, but we try to get back to as many people as we can. And yeah, at the virtual fair you'll be able to talk to the trust directly. So it's a good place to be if you want more information.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye everyone.